Jonathan and Marissa Caldwell were the kind of couple people noticed the moment they walked into a room. Wealthy, stylish, and influential, they owned one of Austin's most opulent mansions, complete with sprawling gardens, a private pool, and security so tight most neighbors felt intimidated just glancing at it. Their life seemed perfect: charity events, high-profile parties, and media attention. But behind closed doors, whispers of secrets and unusual behavior occasionally surfaced among those closest to them. On the night they disappeared, the city buzzed with anticipation for their annual summer gala, an event that promised champagne, expensive art auctions, and a glimpse into their glittering world. Guests recalled the couple mingling and laughing, seemingly at ease, though some noted subtle unease in Jonathan's expression. He glanced repeatedly at the grand clock in the foyer, almost as if counting down to something unseen. Marissa, ever composed, smiled through it, but her friends later admitted her laughter sounded forced, like a mask hiding tension. That evening, the couple left the party briefly to tend to a private matter in their study, promising to return within minutes. But when the guests checked back, neither Jonathan nor Marissa had returned, and no one would see them again. The mansion itself became the first clue that something was terribly wrong. Their cars remained in the driveway, untouched, and the security gates were still locked as usual. Staff who had worked for the Caldwells for years insisted nothing appeared disturbed inside. Personal items, watches, wallets, and even jewelry, were left in plain sight. It was as if the couple had vanished mid-step, leaving an invisible void behind them. Police officers who first arrived were struck by the eeriness. Lights left on, the fireplace still warm, and the faint smell of perfume lingering in the air, yet no footprints or signs of forced entry anywhere. Neighbors began reporting strange occurrences that night. Some claimed to see fleeting shadows crossing the property, while others swore they heard muffled voices arguing outside the mansion's walls. Dogs in the area barked incessantly, though no human presence was visible. The local media quickly latched onto these details, painting a picture of a vanishing that bordered on the supernatural. Friends and acquaintances of the couple were interviewed repeatedly, but no one could recall a motive or any unusual behavior that might explain their sudden disappearance. It was a clean, almost clinical vanishing, leaving everyone unsettled. By dawn, the story of the Caldwell disappearance had spread across Austin. Police scoured the mansion room by room, searching for any hint of foul play or a hurried escape. Cameras in the surrounding streets showed no unusual traffic, no strangers entering or leaving the property, nothing to suggest a typical crime. Friends were baffled, law enforcement frustrated, and the city gripped by a creeping fear. How could two prominent individuals simply vanish from the heart of one of America's busiest cities? And so began a mystery that would remain unsolved for decades, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a chilling void where the Caldwells once lived. As news of the Caldwell disappearance spread, the Austin Police Department immediately launched one of the most exhaustive investigations in the city's recent history. Detectives combed the mansion from top to bottom, scrutinizing every detail for signs of struggle, forced entry, or hurried departure. Every room was meticulously photographed, every drawer emptied and catalogued, yet nothing seemed out of place. The couple's luxury cars sat untouched in the driveway, the safes in the home were unopened, and even the personal journals and letters on the desk remained intact. It was as if Jonathan and Marissa had simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind an almost eerie perfection. Officers interviewed staff who had worked in the Caldwell mansion for years, but their accounts were consistent and unremarkable. The housekeeper, the groundskeeper, and even the personal assistant all claimed nothing unusual had occurred that evening aside from the couple leaving the party briefly. Security footage was reviewed frame by frame, yet it offered nothing. The cameras showed no unauthorized visitors and no suspicious vehicles in the vicinity. Detectives expanded their search to nearby streets and neighbors' properties, but no sightings, no movements, nothing that could explain the sudden disappearance. Friends and relatives were brought in for questioning, revealing more confusion than clarity. Most described Jonathan and Marissa as careful, meticulous, and cautious, people unlikely to disappear voluntarily or run off without notice. Some mentioned vague tensions in the months prior, offhand remarks about business stress, paranoia over finances, or unusual late-night phone calls, but none suggested imminent danger. Detectives attempted to construct timelines and motives, but every lead seemed to collapse under scrutiny. Friends couldn't account for the last moments they spent with the couple, and distant relatives admitted only to vague suspicions of unknown enemies or possible threats. Theories multiplied, but none held water. Some speculated about kidnappers targeting their wealth. Others wondered if the couple had orchestrated an elaborate disappearance for unknown reasons. Yet no ransom notes appeared, no unusual bank activity was recorded, and there were no digital traces suggesting they had fled to another city or country. Law enforcement consulted criminal experts, but even seasoned investigators admitted the case was baffling. Every conventional explanation, robbery, foul play, voluntary disappearance, was systematically ruled out. The silence of the Caldwell mansion only deepened the mystery. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the investigation began to strain under the weight of dead ends. Detectives placed surveillance in the area, issued public appeals, and followed hundreds of tips, yet nothing came close to providing answers. The city of Austin was gripped by fear and fascination. A wealthy, influential couple could vanish without a trace in a bustling city, and no one, not friends, not family, not even the police, could explain how or why. The lack of closure created an unsettling tension in the community, a shadow of unease that seemed to hang over the Caldwell mansion, and the questions about their fate grew louder with each passing day. Once the Caldwell disappearance hit the headlines, the media frenzy in Austin, and eventually nationwide, was immediate and intense. News anchors covered the story as if it were a thriller unfolding in real time, while talk shows debated every possible angle: kidnapping, murder, even a deliberate vanishing. Local newspapers ran front-page stories for weeks, publishing interviews with neighbors, friends, and employees of the couple. Every detail of the mansion, from its ornate chandeliers to the iron gates, was dissected for clues. The public was captivated, drawn to the mystery of a wealthy couple who had simply evaporated, leaving behind only silence and a perfect, untouched home. Theories proliferated faster than investigators could track them. Amateur sleuths flooded the streets near the mansion, combing gardens, alleyways, and nearby wooded areas for anything unusual. Some claimed they saw shadows moving behind the windows late at night. Others swore they heard voices arguing in the mansion, though no one could confirm these sightings. Online forums, then just starting to gain traction, buzzed with speculation, wild guesses, and conspiracy theories. Some suggested the Caldwells had staged their disappearance to escape enemies, while others whispered about secret criminal connections and dangerous debts that had caught up with them. Every theory seemed more unsettling than the last. As the story grew, the pressure on law enforcement increased dramatically. Calls flooded in from people claiming to have seen the couple or suspicious activity around the mansion, but most proved to be false leads or hoaxes. Investigators had to navigate this overwhelming flood of misinformation carefully, separating credible tips from wild speculation. Meanwhile, journalists dug into the couple's past, uncovering old rumors and business dealings that only added fuel to the fire. The more the public learned, the more mysterious the story became, leaving everyone wondering, were Jonathan and Marissa hiding, or had something far more sinister happened? Even local residents were affected by the frenzy. Neighbors reported feeling uneasy near the mansion, citing strange occurrences like flickering lights, unexplained noises, and the sensation of being watched. Some admitted they avoided passing by the estate at night, fearful of what they might encounter. Rumors spread about shadowy figures lurking in the area, mysterious vehicles seen at odd hours, and the faint sounds of footsteps on the property. The once glamorous mansion became a symbol of fear, a physical representation of unanswered questions, and the city of Austin itself felt a creeping sense of dread surrounding the disappearance. The story of the Caldwells soon became more than a local mystery. It became a cultural obsession. News programs aired special segments, authors speculated in magazines, and amateur investigators continued to post theories online. The couple's disappearance inspired chilling stories, podcasts, and even late-night talk show discussions. Every passing week, the mystery deepened, and the public became hungrier for answers. The perfect vanishing of a wealthy, prominent couple in broad daylight captured imaginations across the nation, setting the stage for a story that would remain haunting for decades. As weeks turned into months and months into years, the Caldwell disappearance transitioned from a high-profile investigation to one of Austin's most haunting cold cases. The initial frenzy of media coverage faded, but the questions lingered. Detectives who had worked tirelessly on the case were reassigned to other investigations, though some returned periodically, hoping new technology or a tip might finally crack the mystery. Files thickened with notes, photographs, and unverified sightings, yet nothing led to the couple. It was as if time itself had swallowed Jonathan and Marissa, leaving only unanswered questions and a chilling emptiness in their mansion. The mansion itself became a strange monument to the unknown. Over the years, it changed owners multiple times, Yet every new resident reported unexplained occurrences. Doors creaked and slammed without cause, lights flickered even when the power was off, and strange cold drafts would sweep through the halls. Some claimed to hear footsteps pacing upstairs or voices murmuring in empty rooms. These experiences fueled urban legends, and locals began referring to the estate as the haunted Caldwell Mansion, a place where something, or someone, was still present, lingering in the shadows of its elegant halls. Meanwhile, the city of Austin adjusted to life without answers. Friends and family of the Caldwells continued to grieve, holding on to the faint hope that one day the couple might reappear. Neighborhood children whispered the story to scare one another, and late-night radio programs recounted the mystery with chilling music and dramatic flair. Despite the passage of decades, the case refused to die in the public consciousness. Each year marked another anniversary of the disappearance, and the story of the vanishing continued to cast a shadow over Austin's community, keeping curiosity and fear intertwined in the city's collective imagination. Law enforcement occasionally revisited the case, often prompted by anonymous tips, mysterious packages, or unconfirmed sightings. Technological advancements offered new hope: DNA analysis, enhanced surveillance, and digital forensics. But even these tools could not shed light on what happened to the Caldwells. Every clue seemed tantalizing yet ultimately unhelpful, like pieces of a puzzle with no edges. Investigators often spoke of a sense of presence in the mansion, as though someone, or something, had left an indelible mark that resisted explanation. The longer the case remained unsolved, the more it seemed to transcend reality, becoming a story told in whispers and speculation rather than facts. By the mid-2010s, the Caldwell disappearance had taken on a mythic quality. Though officially a cold case, the mystery continued to intrigue writers, journalists, and amateur sleuths across the country. Online forums dissected old photographs, and ghost hunting groups visited the mansion with cameras and recording devices, seeking signs of paranormal activity. The legend of Jonathan and Marissa grew, fueled by decades of silence and the mansion's eerie reputation. Yet, even with all this attention, one question persisted above all else. Where had the couple gone, and what terrifying truth were they hiding from, or being hidden from? Nearly 3 decades after the Caldwell disappearance, in the remote stretches of the Texas desert, a shocking discovery reignited the decades-old mystery. In 2025, an amateur hiker, exploring an isolated canyon miles away from the city, stumbled across a small, partially buried cache hidden beneath a tattered tarp and several rocks. At first glance, it looked like forgotten camping gear, but upon closer inspection, the hiker realized the items were far more personal and far more significant. Among the debris were worn journals, pieces of jewelry, and personal belongings that had belonged unmistakably to Jonathan and Marissa Caldwell. The discovery instantly caught the attention of law enforcement and the media, setting off a flurry of activity in an area previously thought unrelated to the case. The journals were particularly chilling. Handwritten in a hurried, sometimes frantic scrawl, the pages chronicled months of fear and secrecy. The couple described feeling watched constantly, paranoia creeping into every part of their lives. They mentioned secret meetings in shadowed locations, coded messages to friends, and the careful planning of their escape from an unnamed threat. Each entry grew progressively darker, revealing a desperate struggle to stay one step ahead of whoever, or whatever, was pursuing them. For the first time in decades, it seemed the Caldwells were speaking directly from beyond the vanished years, leaving clues only someone determined could interpret. Among the items in the cache were photographs and personal trinkets, untouched by modern hands but faded and sun-bleached from years in the desert. A pair of watches stopped at the same time, as if frozen by the moment of some final event, and a bundle of letters hinted at friends and associates who had been involved in the couple's secret communications. Investigators noted the meticulous care with which the cache had been hidden, suggesting the Caldwells, or someone on their behalf, had deliberately chosen this remote desert location to safeguard the evidence. It was clear the items weren't discarded casually. They were protected, a silent testimony to events the outside world had never witnessed. Authorities quickly analyzed the desert cache, but it raised as many questions as it answered. How had the couple made it so far from their mansion without being seen? Why did they choose this particular location, isolated from roads and towns? And perhaps most unsettling of all, what had happened after the cache was left behind? Every item seemed to tell part of a story, but the critical details, the final fate of Jonathan and Marissa, remained hidden. Yet the cache provided undeniable proof that the couple had survived, at least temporarily, beyond the confines of their mansion and the eyes of the public. Word of the discovery spread like wildfire. The story captivated both local residents and national media outlets, eager to learn the new revelations in a mystery that had grown cold decades ago. Amateur sleuths and journalists descended on the area, hoping to uncover more hidden items or clues, while law enforcement worked to secure the site and preserve its evidence. The desert, long silent and desolate, had suddenly become the epicenter of one of the most haunting mysteries in modern American history. For the first time in 27 years, there was a tangible trail, an unsettling, cryptic breadcrumb path left behind by the Caldwells that hinted at secrets too dangerous to reveal openly. As investigators meticulously examined the journals and belongings in the desert cache, a horrifying narrative began to emerge, one that transformed the Caldwell case from a baffling disappearance into a story of relentless fear and peril. The journals described months of living in constant paranoia, of shadowy figures lurking at the edges of their world, and of coded communications meant to protect their whereabouts. Jonathan and Marissa had not merely vanished, they had been hunted, stalked by an unknown but persistent force. Every entry was steeped in dread, as though the very act of writing their thoughts could summon unseen eyes watching from the darkness. The couple detailed careful, painstaking escapes from people they believed were following them. They moved from safe house to safe house, often under the cover of night, documenting their movements in intricate codes and symbols only they could decipher. One entry described a near capture on the outskirts of Austin, with tires slashed and cars sabotaged in an attempt to delay pursuit. Another hinted at betrayal by someone they had once trusted, a friend or associate who had provided crucial information to their pursuers. The deeper the investigators delved, the clearer it became that Jonathan and Marissa had been engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse for months, possibly years, before they ultimately disappeared into the desert. Among the most chilling details were the final journal entries. They were abrupt, fragmented, and in some cases smeared with what appeared to be blood. The tone shifted from fear to sheer desperation, as the Caldwells recounted moments where they narrowly escaped confrontation, describing shadowy figures breaking into safe houses or waiting just beyond the road under cover of darkness. These entries left investigators with a gnawing sense of urgency. Whoever, or whatever, had been pursuing them was not only patient but methodical and unrelenting. The desert cache, once a hidden trove of belongings, now felt like a witness to terror itself, frozen in time. The photographs found among the cache added another layer of dread. Grainy, sun-bleached images showed fleeting glimpses of figures at the mansion, near rental properties, and along deserted roads, figures too indistinct to identify but whose presence suggested a surveillance operation that had lasted years. The Caldwells had clearly known they were being watched, chronicling each suspicious encounter with meticulous care. These revelations painted a portrait of lives dictated not by wealth or comfort, but by a pervasive, almost tangible fear. Their opulent mansion, once a symbol of success, now appeared as a gilded cage under constant scrutiny. Every new piece of evidence from the desert hinted at the horrifying reality that Jonathan and Marissa were not only fleeing, but trapped in a life of relentless terror. The journals and artifacts suggested a network of unseen enemies, a presence that could strike at any moment, and plans that were constantly disrupted by outside interference. Each page and photograph brought investigators, and later, the public, closer to understanding the sheer scale of danger the couple had endured. The truth was no longer abstract. It was visceral, frightening, and undeniable, painting a chilling picture of two lives consumed by fear long before the desert finally claimed their secrets. The most haunting evidence in the desert cache was a small, weathered box, carefully concealed beneath layers of sand and rocks. Inside were photographs, grainy, almost spectral images showing shadowy figures lurking near the Caldwell mansion over the years. Some appeared outside windows, their shapes indistinct but undeniably human, while others were glimpsed standing at the edge of streets or hidden behind trees. The pictures suggested a surveillance operation that had lasted decades, confirming what the journals hinted at. Jonathan and Marissa had been under constant watch, their every move observed by unseen eyes. Each photograph sent chills through investigators, as though the past was reaching out from the shadows. Alongside the photographs were more personal items, letters, envelopes with cryptic codes, and even pieces of clothing marked with dates and notes in Jonathan and Marissa's handwriting. The coded messages revealed attempts to communicate with friends and trusted allies, hints at secret meetings, and desperate pleas for assistance. But the messages were fragmented, interrupted by fear and urgency, showing just how precarious their situation had become. It was clear the couple had been carefully plotting their survival, yet the interruptions, the near captures, and the constant threat of discovery made their plans incomplete and dangerously fragile. Investigators were struck by the level of meticulous planning the Caldwells had undertaken. Every item in the cache spoke to a life lived in hiding, a life where every choice was dictated by the need to evade an unseen enemy. Their journals described the strategies they had employed: false trails, hidden caches of supplies, and coded communications, all designed to stay one step ahead. Yet the photographs suggested that despite all these efforts, someone had been tracking them with remarkable consistency and patience. The realization that the Caldwells' life of fear had persisted for decades left a lingering unease. If they had been monitored so closely for so long, who, or what, remained out there? Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the final revelation was the uncertainty surrounding the couple's ultimate fate. The desert cache offered proof that they had survived for a time, that they had documented their terror, and that they had fought to evade capture, but it stopped short of providing closure. There were no bodies, no eyewitness accounts, no definitive sign of what happened after the items were left behind. Every clue raised new questions. Had the Caldwells finally escaped to safety? Had they been caught, or worse? Or had they vanished entirely, leaving the desert as the silent witness to their final hours? The lack of answers made the discovery both thrilling and terrifying. Even decades later, the case continues to haunt investigators and thrill-seekers alike. The photographs, journals, and personal artifacts hint at a story larger and darker than anyone had imagined. A life under siege, a couple constantly fleeing, and enemies whose identities remain a mystery. While the desert cache finally revealed some of the Caldwells' secrets, it also deepened the sense of dread surrounding their disappearance. Questions linger: who had been watching them for decades? How had they survived so long? And most unnerving of all, could the threat that pursued them still exist somewhere, watching in silence, waiting for another chapter in a story that may never truly end? As the dust of the desert settles, the Caldwell case reminds us that some mysteries never truly disappear. Jonathan and Marissa vanished from their mansion over 27 years ago, and though the desert cache revealed fragments of their lives, it offered only more questions than answers. The photographs, journals, and cryptic messages hint at a life shadowed by fear, a relentless pursuit, and secrets too dangerous to fully uncover. Even now, we are left to wonder: did the couple escape, or did the forces that hunted them finally catch up? Was the desert cache a message left behind in desperation, or a warning to anyone who might follow their trail? Each artifact whispers a chilling truth. Sometimes, the most terrifying part of a mystery isn't the disappearance itself, it's the lingering presence of whatever, or whoever, watched them for decades, waiting patiently in the shadows. And so, the story of Jonathan and Marissa Caldwell remains unfinished, a haunting reminder that some secrets, no matter how deeply buried, refuse to stay hidden forever. The desert keeps its silence, the photographs remain faded and eerie, and the questions live on. Because in the world of the missing, some answers may never come. And sometimes, the shadows are still watching.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.